Daggone, boy, you got you a blog?
Retakes Earthquake.
Anyway.
But what I want to say is, when a cop walks up to a car with an African American, the question is he more naturally on high alert with the African American than he is with like a white person?
It certainly seems that way.
It seems that way to me too. That's the reality. And if this goes back to one of those things where I think some people even on my side need to at least admit that that's truly what happened. Now, you can go into 12 million reasons why that happens, and everybody has a different explanation that defends their stance of why that happens. Oh, it's because of these statistics showing that this, or this is because of this. Everybody has a justification. I don't want to get into the justification of why that happens, but I do believe that when a cop pulls over a black person, he's generally going to be on higher alert than he is of a white person. So when it comes into how this situation played, I'm going to think, and this is purely speculation, purely opinion, but when he got out of that car, he was at least on a much higher alert and much more on edge than he would have been if it was a white person in that situation. So when he
so that may be the case. That may be the case, but it's certainly not justified.
No, I'm not justifying it at all.
If the gentleman in the car had been white, but he had 2 felonies and kilos of cocaine and armed weapons in his lap, but he saw that he had white skin, the cop's life is in danger in that scenario. He wouldn't have known until he got there.
Exactly.
So you don't know the criminal element that you're dealing with until you assess the full situation.
100%.
You can't just look at somebody's skin and say, I know how much danger there is.
Well,
you can't.
You can't, and you're
but,
right.
But people do.
People do.
People do.
People do. And what I'm saying is...
And ignorance is no excuse.
Of course.
For the law,
so what I'm saying
for
is,
anything. So
when he came up to this car, whenever you're on edge, this is where you generally bring in the term trigger happy.
So, sorry to interrupt you. I apologize for that. But if that makes you on edge, if pulling somebody over for a traffic stop makes you on edge, you are not qualified for that position.
That might be true.
And you should not be
and
doing
that may be
job.
true. And we can go into all, and we will go into all that in a little bit. But when it comes down to it, I just want to clarify one thing. If he goes up and he has a different bias of how he approaches this black person as opposed to the white person, and he's technically, I'm not going to use the word scared.
But they do. They say, I feared for my life. That's their whole defense.
Yeah, but when you say fear for life, he's talking about in regards to the actual escalation, which is a little bit different from what I'm talking about.
The approach. You're talking about
I'm
the
just
approach.
talking about before there's any confrontation.
The approach.
Before that, when he's just walking to the car. Is he on higher edge than he would if it was a person that was not African American?
You have to ask him.
Well, and I'm going to go with probably. I just do. I just believe he probably was. He was probably on higher alert. Now, is it to the point that he's going to kill somebody? Maybe not. I don't know. There's no way for me to know that. But when you're already on edge and you have a firearm, the chance of an incident of this magnitude of going up skyrockets compared to another situation.
So don't give them firearms and they will be less on edge. Well,
the unfortunate side to that is you can't have the police not armed and then the average citizen's allowed to be armed too. That's the other flip side to that. And you say, well, take away the guns from the citizens. Well, you can't do that because it's in the Constitution. So it's kind of this catch-22. Yeah. Sometimes what works out one way is not going to be great in another. And it's actually great. I got my buddy Jason.
What's up, Jason?
Okay. I actually want to read this from Jason because Jason's an actual cop.
All right.
Can you read that or no?
My vision's not great, but I'll do my best.
I want to read this from Jason because Jason's actually...
I'll get it. During vehicle stops, when the license plate is read, cops are notified by dispatch if there are any felony warrants, misdemeanor warrants, or if anyone is on probation has ever been associated with the vehicle plates. Therefore, some cars are approached with higher alert than others.
Okay, and that makes perfect sense. Yeah. And I appreciate that, Jason. Thank you for that. Jason's one of the good cops. I lived with him for years.
Most of the cops are good.
Most of the cops are good. Jason's awesome. And basically, he's saying what you're talking about is true. So you're right. If there's a serious issue with this car,
they would have known ahead of time.
But what Doug was talking about was more that there could be danger anywhere, but some people you would just don't perceive it to be danger simply because of the color of their skin, which I think is a fair assessment too. So I get what you were saying, and I get what Jason's saying. So of course, anytime a cop's going to pull him over, he's going to run it. Now, did this guy have anything on there to?
I don't think that he had any convictions, but he had several encounters.
Okay.
I saw an article that said, but nothing above traffic citations.
Okay.
Nothing above traffic.
So I mean, because I can definitely understand if there's something in there a violent crime or something like that.
But you know what? This is crucial right here. This information, because that never comes out. If a police shoots somebody, the first thing they do is start digging for dirt. They want to find out if there's anything criminal in the victim's past to where they can justify it.
Of course.
Right? But it's very important to know if they were approaching the vehicle on high alert, like you're saying, because the plates came back dirty or what have you. The public should know that when making their first gut reaction on who was wrong and how wrong were they.
Unfortunately, what that's speculation, and that's not allowed in court.
How is that speculation?
Speculation because how can you prove that he was on high alert?
No. That's not my point. Okay. We've got dash cams, we've got body cams.
Okay.
We're recording the whole interaction, okay? So if this gentleman calls in the plates and they say, oh, nothing, a couple speeding tickets, and that's it, and we know he should not have been on high alert when approaching that vehicle, versus, oh, yes, 2 felonies, violent offense, on probation, all these things, okay, the officer would have been on high alert. That's very important.
I agree. But the problem is especially when you watch the video. So where he goes in, where he pulls the gun out and everything like that.
Well, who pulls out what gun?
The cop. When the cop pulls out his weapon.
Oh, that's right, because Philando didn't pull out a gun.
So when the cop pulled out his gun, it's hard. There's no way to know where in his mind it triggered into being fear. And it matters because you have to be able to prove that to prove malice intent. So that's why I'm saying, like, that's what makes it so hard to convict these cases.
But see, when it's an officer, they're willing to split these hairs and say, we can, and we're not sure, we were warning in his mind. Civilians don't get that. They don't get that benefit of the doubt.
You're right. They do.
We get warning shots.
Mm-hmm.
Talk is cheap, motherfucker.